KSCU Santa Clara presents Robots Attack. Movies, TV, video games, comic books, tech stuff, news, music. If it is geek, it's on Robots Attack. Participate on the show by commenting on Facebook, tweeting them at RobotsAttackMe, emailing the show robotsattackshow@gmail.com. Now, Robots Attack.
All right, welcome to Robots Attack, geek-centric talk show here on KSU Santa Clara 103.3 FM, the Underground Sound. I am Joe, and with me is
Jason.
That's right. It's just the two of us, the two amigos. Sadly, Caleb is off doing church things, helping children and whatnot. In a positive way, people. Get your minds out of the gutter.
Noble causes and whatnot.
So yeah, it will just be the two of us, but we've got a fantastic show for you tonight. We're going to have part 2 of E3. We're going to talk about Microsoft and the third-party stuff. Last week we mentioned, Caleb in particular mentioned Nintendo, and I talked about Sony. I'll do a little bit of wrap-up on Sony because there is one trailer that I forgot to mention that they showed that I can't believe I forgot. I kicked myself, not literally, but when we left and I was driving home, I was like, I forgot about that one, and it was really awesome. So I'll hit that up, and then just a few sort of passing comments for Sony, and then we'll get right into that. But first, we like to do new releases, but even before that, we've got a PSA for you.
The 38th annual San Francisco Free Folk Festival is approaching quickly. Not only will there be several folk acts, but music and dance workshops and family activities will also be held at this exciting event. The most popular workshop of all is the Beatles Sing-Along. You won't want to miss it.
Oh.
Join the fun on June 21st and 22nd from noon to 10 p.m. or visit www.sffolkfest.org for more information. Hope to see you there.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, sounds folksy.
Yeah. Little Beatles action there.
Right.
And it's always fun to sing. Beatles rock band it's always a good time. Speaking of possibly a good time, we're going to hit the new releases for this week. Remember, it's just a sampling. There's tons and tons of things, but we just grab what we can. Otherwise, it would take our entire show, and we don't want to devote our entire show to new releases. So first off, in the theaters, we have Jersey Boys. 4 young men from the wrong side of the tracks in New Jersey come together to form the iconic rock group, The Four Seasons. I believe this is directed by Clint Eastwood.
Yep.
The story of their trials and triumphs are accompanied by the songs they made famous, including Sherry, Big Girls Don't Cry, Walk Like a Man, Dawn, Ragdoll, Bye Bye Baby, Who Loves You, and many more. If you're not interested in Jersey Boys, maybe you're interested in Think Like a Man 2. That's T-O-O, but I do also believe that it is a sequel.
Huh.
All the couples are back for a wedding in Las Vegas, but plans for a romantic weekend go awry when their various misadventures get them into some compromising situations that threaten to derail the big event.
Oh, no.
I know, man. It's like Vegas. It's like, I would be surprised if they ever made a movie where, no shenanigans happen in Vegas. It always seems
right,
like...
what's the point then?
Yeah, but it's just, hey, we're going to Vegas. All right, I guess shenanigans are going to happen because...
We're just going to see a couple shows. That's going to be the end of it.
Yeah, that's the surprise twist. Wait, there were no shenanigans in Las Vegas in that
Right.
movie. And finally, we have Coherence. On the night of an astronomical anomaly, 8 friends at a dinner party experience a troubling chain of reality-bending events.
All right, and we have a few DVDs for you. The first up, very interesting to me at least, I Know That Voice, coming to DVD, a documentary that puts a face to the voices that we know so well. It's produced by John DiMaggio of Bender and Jake the Dog fame from the cartoons. This This features interviews with some of the most notable voice actors around, including Kevin Conroy, a.k.a. Batman, Rob Paulson, Pinky, Yakko Warner, Donatello, Jennifer Hale, Commander Shepard, and Jean Grey, and Nancy Cartwright, known for Rufus and Bart Simpson, among others. Next up, we have The Machine coming to Blu-ray and DVD. Into a world on the brink of collapse is born an unlikely child, the world's first sentient AI.
Whoa.
Whoa, indeed. I'm scared already.
Yeah.
I don't think it's meant to be scary, though.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, once placed into an android body, she is destined to be a war machine unless the scientists who created her can free her.
Ah.
There's the hope there.
Okay, there's the hope.
Right. We love to bring the hope. Okay, next up, Walk of Shame to Blu-ray and DVD. Stranded in downtown L.A. with no car, no ID, no money, and no way to get to the interview of her life. Stranded. Walk of Shame.
Walk of Shame.
And in case you hadn't heard of it, there was a Lego movie that came out, finally coming to Blu-ray and DVD. In a world made of awesome, or Lego, this movie has it, when an ordinary Lego guy is mistaken for a master builder, he becomes the one hope against a madman who wants to glue the world together.
Oh.
I've often thought about gluing the world together, but in my world, it's not made of bricks, so, I mean... Anyway, finally, we have the Grand Budapest Hotel coming to Blu-ray and DVD. A priceless painting is stolen. Access to a vast family fortune hangs in the balance. It all turns upon a bellhop and a concierge.
Ooh.
In the midst of this internal struggle is a large change in the continent. Anyway.
I wasn't expecting that. Interesting.
Nor was I, apparently.
Oh, on a side sort of Lego note,
yes,
I did see the Simpsons Lego episode, and it was quite good.
Oh, okay. I'd heard about that.
So moving from DVDs and the Blu-rays, we move to video games. We've got UFC for Xbox One and PS4. UFC Ultimate Fighting Championship is a mixed martial arts fighting game that uses the new EA Sports Ignite engine, which we may or may not mention in the core when we hit E3. It's burning hot. When players beat career mode on pro difficulty or higher, they will unlock Bruce Lee and can test his legacy against the best of the best in the UFC across 4 different weight classes. If you're not interested in Ultimate Fighting Championships, maybe you're interested in MotoGP 13 for 360, PS3, Vita, and PC. Speed, emotion, innovation. The full 2013 MotoGP season. Graphical excellence. The essential elements mixed with an adrenaline-fueled experience will characterize the brand new MotoGP 13, reinvented by Milestone with genre-leading redesigned graphics. Milestone's new project will bring players into the 2013 championship through the eyes of a real MotoGP rider. Then we have Tropico 5 for the PC, PS4, and 360. Packed with a host of new gameplay features and new artwork designed from scratch, Tropico 5 takes the series into a new direction. Dynasties. U.S. El Presidente will first take control of the infamous island of Tropico during early colonial times and then guide it through the centuries as the world changes and moves ever forward.
Tropico in space.
Who knows? Maybe that's 6.
Let's see. Coming from the world of comics, starting with DC, Sandman Overture #1. Good place to start from sort of the beginning. The Dream King returns, as does Neil Gaiman. This miniseries covers the origins of Morpheus and the events that lead up to his capture, which is where the original series picks up. Coming from Marvel, Punisher #7. A group of American soldiers are being held in a South American drug lord's prison. The latest addition to the group is none other than Frank Castle. There are larger mysteries to be unraveled as the jail is not what it appears to be. Coming from IDW, Powerpuff Girls #10. Battle of the Bands takes on a whole new level as the boogeyman decides to fight for his right to disco. That's going to be a fight right there.
That's fight and disco.
From Image, The Wicked and the Divine #1. The time has come again for the 12 gods to be reborn as humans, teenagers to be exact. And in
all
2
those
years...
hormones.
Right. That's not a good combo. And in 2 years, they're going to die. Another bad combo. Immortality seems to have a short lifespan. Coming from Dark Horse, I have the Newt #1. A young wizard is sent on a dangerous quest. If you need any more than that,
I have the Newt.
Right. We're gonna make music to go along with that. It's gonna be a tiger Newt.
Yeah.
Anyway, that wraps up comics.
Okay, and then finally we've got some music. We've got AKA from Jennifer Lopez. The 8th studio release for the pop singer.
What else is she known as?
I don't know, but
okay.
This is getting guest appearances from French Montana, Iggy Azalea, Pitbull, Rick Ross, and T.I. Then we have Lana Del Rey's new album, Ultraviolence. The 3rd full-length release for the pop singer-songwriter was produced by Dan Urbach and recorded live with a 7-piece band. Then we have Familiars from The Antlers. The 4th album from Brooklyn indie band led by Pete Silberman was influenced by the Eastern philosophy book Silberman was reading. And we have Linkin Park's new album, The Hunting Party. The 6th studio release for the Newell metal group was co-produced by band members Brad Dulson and Mike Shinoda, with guest appearances from Paige Hamilton, Darren Malakany, Tom Morello, and Rakim. And we have Willie Nelson's new album, Band of Brothers, produced by Buddy Cannon. The latest release for the country singer-songwriter features 9 original songs and a duet with Jamie Johnson. And then finally we have David Gray's new album, Mutineers. First release in 4 years for the British singer-songwriter, was produced by Andy Barlow. All right. Again, there's just a sampling of some new releases this week and coming out this weekend. All right, we're going to take a music break, and then we will come back with normally the news, but I'm going to change it up this time because I want to make sure we get as much time as we can to the second part of E3. So we're going to come back.
Gotta nail down this E3 stuff.
Yeah, we want to get it all out of our system. And then whatever time is left, we'll devote it to the news or Geek Talk or whatever we want. It's Thursday evening.
Honestly, we'll probably run out of time anyway.
Yeah, I'm imagining that we definitely will. But that's just the goal. Hopefully we can reach it. And we would definitely love to hear from you. We love it when you participate on the show. Just hit up our Facebook page. Just search for facebook.com/robotsattackshow. Or you can hit us on Twitter. It's Robots Attack Me. Or you can go to our website, robotsattack.me. It's got links to everything, even previous shows. You can email us, all that jazz. And I just want to give a shout out. We've got a few new likes on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
If for those old and new, thank you for liking the page. Share the wealth.
Right.
Let your friends know.
And welcome.
Yeah. And, Our goal here is to entertain you as well as ourselves. So let's get to that music. I'm going to play the Casket Girls. Not the most uplifting of names, but...
Who knows, though? I
mean, yeah.
It might be ironic.
Maybe. The track is Day to Day, and the album is True Love Kills the Fairy Tale.
Ironic, I tell you.
Yeah. All right. You're listening to Robots Attack here on KSU Santa Clara. We'll be right back after the music break.
Want to listen to KSU even when you're not near a radio? Stream us whenever you want at www.ksu.org or on the TuneIn Radio app or website, and never be without the underground sound.
You're listening to Robots Attack. Follow them on Twitter at Robots Attack Me. Email them at robotsattackshow@gmail.com. Like them on Facebook. And check out the website at robotsattack.me.
You are now entering the core.
That's right. Welcome back to Robots Attack here on KSU Santa Clara 103.3 FM, the underground sound. We are in the core. If you're familiar with the show, normally you're like, wait a minute, did I just like time warp an hour ahead in the show? No, we're doing things a little differently. I wanted to make sure that we hit part 2 of E3 because last week I figured we wouldn't have enough time, but like I was sort of optimistic that we'd maybe be able to hit everything, but no, we got Nintendo and Sony, and it was like 5 minutes left in the show. We're like, so do we want to talk about Microsoft, the one that we all own, and like are more invested in?
That we can actually talk in depth about.
Yeah, so we saved it for this week, part 2. We're going to hit Microsoft and the third parties, but I did want to kind of wrap up Sony because there were one other game that was shown that I am slapping myself that I forgot to talk about. But maybe it was psychologically, subliminally on purpose, so I could give it a little bit more to talk about now. But so yeah, I'm gonna just wrap up Sony a little bit, and then we'll get straight to Microsoft. The other game that they showed towards the end, before they wrapped it up with Uncharted 4, was Batman: Arkham Knight.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, they showed like an actual like gameplay footage. Like,
oh, nice.
Like, there's been some talk of people, like. The cool thing with especially Arkham City was just like roaming through the city, flying around, and just like that was just really an awesome feeling.
Yeah.
And this one was introduced like, oh, now you get the Batmobile.
Mm-hmm.
There was talk where people were like, well, I really liked traversing through the city, like just gliding through as Batman.
Yeah.
Now, is the Batmobile going to be like as cool, or is it going to kind of take away from that? This gameplay trailer kind of answers that question.
Okay.
You're going to get both. And it's going to, from at least what they showed, work very seamlessly, very well together. Like, they showed Batman taking off, gliding through the city, and it looked so awesome. I'm sure it was on like a high-end PC, which a lot of these games probably were, except for maybe the ones that were coming out this year, but I'm almost going to guarantee they were on a PC or high-end.
Yeah,
so
if they're not, they usually try and say that, oh, this is rendered in so-and-so operating system.
Yeah, so, it's like you got to take certain things with a grain of salt, but I'm sure this game is still going to look beautiful, and it looked awesome. But yeah, it showed Batman, you're just gliding through the city, and it would give you the little pop-up of like, glide kick this guy, when you get near people. Yeah. So you're doing that, and then all of a sudden he calls in the Batmobile, and he just like swoops down the cockpit, opens up, he jumps right in, and then you just take off in the Batmobile.
Okay.
And he's gliding through, and then it has like a tank mode or something for taking on like enemy vehicles. And when people they made sure to mention, at least not in this, but I've heard outside, they were like, well, Batman, like, he doesn't kill people, like he doesn't shoot people and stuff like that. So it's like, but you're in the Batmobile and you're like shooting guns and blowing people up. And they're like, well, the like enemy tanks or whatever you're fighting, they're unmanned. They're like robots, sort of. And so they get away with that. And then when he's fighting people with the Batmobile, it switches to rubber bullets.
Oh, okay.
So it like knocks people out.
Makes sense.
So, they try to cover that aspect of, well, wait, Batman doesn't gun down people. I mean, he pretty much beats them to near death.
Not that we know of.
But yeah.
He is quite silent, so maybe he just covers his tracks really well.
It's true. It's
even
very
in
true.
The video games where we're playing as him, just pops a smoke pellet.
Yeah. You just
I'm sorry, this guy needs gadding.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
What you gonna do about it?
What happened to the controls? I can't
Wait
see
a minute.
anything.
It just took over. I didn't push a button to kill.
Right. That's probably not a feature of the game.
Yeah, probably not. So he hopped in, drived around, blew up some enemy tanks, and then like popped right out of it, just shot right out of it. Like the cockpit opened up again, shot right out, and started gliding again. So
that's pretty cool.
They made it seem like it's going to be very fluid. You don't have to worry about missing out on that, gliding through the city and feeling like a bat, and then also using the Batmobile. Like they wanted to make it feel like one, and that's kind of the idea with the Batmobile. And then you'll be able to remotely control the Batmobile, I guess, from what I hear.
Makes sense.
And it was interesting. I'd mentioned previously that the Sony presentation had some technical difficulties, like mostly with mics early on. It would like during this presentation, it started glitching and everything, and I was like, "Oh no, are they having problems again?" And if you watch the press conference, they would occasionally jump from like the footage being the full picture to out like into the stadium or wherever, so it's like you'd see the screen and everyone sitting. Throughout I think both presentations they would do that like occasionally, and so when that was starting to happen, they popped out and all the lights were going nuts and everything. So I was like, is this part of it? But since they were having technical difficulties earlier, I was like, oh no, are they having problems? That sucks, especially with this. Then it like completely glitches and goes black, and then you hear Scarecrow start talking, and there's like, oh,
that's cool.
Okay, and so yeah,
maybe he just was doing the entire thing.
So yeah, it's like it was part of the presentation, and so it's like he's gonna be, if not like the big bad, like at least one of them. Like he's gonna be a big part of it.
It seems like he's been kind of the reoccurring big psychological component of all of the games so far. So I'm not completely surprised by that.
And he wasn't really in the city. Like you found his like mask on top of a like it was a little Easter egg kind of thing.
Okay.
But they used someone else to I won't say anything, but like in Arkham Asylum they had the levels where you tripped out, and then in City they had someone else sort of do those levels, and then it looks like he's returning in Arkham Knight, but yeah, it looks super awesome, and apparently they're gonna have. I remember this previously. I think Sony had like some exclusive Joker missions or Joker things, but it looks like they're gonna have exclusive Scarecrow missions this time. So yeah. I was like, driving away, and I was like, oh, I forgot to talk about Batman Arkham Knight because it looks so awesome. But yeah, so that was the one that I missed talking about, at least the big one. And then just sort of finally say it was a solid press conference. I mean, I don't think it captured people's excitement as much as the last one for most people, but they kept it for the most part on games, but they threw in some TV stuff and then some, I think I mentioned before too, some like this many times the share button's been pressed, this many people done this, like, okay, just kind of stroking yourself. I mean, that's cool, but it's like, all right, I mean, great and all. But overall, it was a few kind of cheap shots that I didn't really care for, and they didn't really... From what I can remember, they didn't really acknowledge the other sort of groups, companies, things there. The only times they mentioned sort of outside things were if they were partnered with them, like Disney. They did a few things with them, and like the Tim Schafer thing in Disney with Grim Fandango and stuff like that. So it was like kind of, Sony still riding the high that they are definitely having, still continuing to sell really well with the PS4s, but still running off of pretty good strong message from the last E3. So overall it was solid. They definitely showed some exciting stuff, but yeah, that was Sony's press conference. And I think since we're close to the time, let me read PSA just so we don't have to stop mid.
Sounds good.
Through Microsoft. So I'm going to tell you about San Jose Animal Advocates. You're an animal lover who wants to help homeless animals find their forever homes but have a little bit of time to volunteer. Join San Jose Animal Advocates, a local nonprofit that is building a community network to help find loving foster and forever homes for your pets in our local shelters. With your help, we can save countless animals. All it takes is a few clicks and you can share their stories with your network of friends. It's easy. Join them at sjanimaladvocates.org or look for them on Facebook. All right, let's get into Microsoft's.
All right. I guess I'm in charge of the Microsoft stuff for the most part, but thankfully I have somebody else here who also saw it. So I'm gonna kind of lead in with it, but there's
Yeah.
probably gonna be a fair amount of back and forth here.
Yeah, I'll jump in when it seems appropriate.
Yeah, the first thing about the Microsoft presentation, they definitely tried to keep it completely about games, like start to finish.
Yeah.
So it almost became a little bit like beating a dead horse at certain points, but they definitely heard the message that people were basically screaming at them. We want it to be all about the games. And so they made it all about the games, and they did a pretty decent job of that. They didn't talk about any sort of tech stuff outside of the games themselves, as far as I could tell.
Yeah, I think it was.
And it was interesting. Like, even when they had golden opportunities, like they had the opportunity to play up the big Kinect title coming out, the Fantasia game, and they completely just didn't mention it at all. Instead, they talked about new release of one of the previous franchise games that people were more familiar with, so that they didn't even have to mention Kinect, even when they were talking about a Kinect thing.
Yeah.
So, that said, to me, the biggest thing was that they were bringing up a lot more of the indie stuff, which is a welcome change. There has been some indie stuff on Xbox, but it has had some stall-outs with getting a bunch of stuff from the indie scene. But the stuff that they were showing off looked pretty amazing to me. Kind of the big flagship game on their indie scene was Ori, Blind Forest.
Yes.
It looks absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I didn't really expect kind of a side-scrolling, swooping type of fantasy game to look so cool.
Yeah.
And to kind of hit you in the stomach with good emotional moments. But
Yeah.
it looked like they did it really good. And that brings up another thing about just their overall presentation in general. Ori's kind of theme is the main character looks like it's made of light, basically. And so there's certain punctuations in the game where things end up flowering, like when this little creature goes to sleep and it pops up like white light all over the place, like flowers blooming.
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of cool thing that they did in the EA presentation with Microsoft is, I guess they handed out tons and tons of these LED bracelet things.
Oh, okay.
And so they ended up doing something that I thought was pretty neat. They'd zoom out on the audience and show how everybody else, how the event was looking. And so these LED bracelets would end up swapping off to different colors to kind of punctuate all of the different games. And Ori was the first one that I noticed that did that. Then I went back and noticed like tons more. But yeah, it ended up being a really nice punctuation to the end of the game, because they had like a heartfelt moment where this little creature is falling asleep and things are blooming and whatnot. And then they zoom out and it shows all of these bracelets like popping on the exact same way that it was on the screen showing off the game. So I thought that was pretty cool. Next was a big follow-up from a very big game that won tons and tons of stuff. The makers of Limbo are making a game called Inside.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to be a really, really creepy thing where you're playing a kid trying to infiltrate a factory that seems to be taking in humans that are walking like zombies in lockstep. It looks really weird, creepy. It has a pretty decent mystery element to it from what I can tell.
Yeah.
And it looks really beautiful. They didn't stick with the just silhouette thing. They have really nicely rendered but simple like color palette and whatnot.
Yeah, it just seems like kind of some red splashed here and there occasionally.
Yeah, basically anything to highlight the main character but not make it look like it's standing out so much that people would be noticing the character and so on. Anyway, it looks beautiful. I'm looking forward to that one, especially since Limbo did incredibly well.
Yeah, and I think that I believe Ori is exclusive to
Yeah,
one
Ori
and
is
PC?
exclusive. Limbo, I don't know about. I think that's actually on other systems.
I think, at the very least, I think it said it's dropping first
Okay.
on Xbox One, because I believe Limbo, I think it's going to do a similar thing with Limbo. Like it first appeared on 360 and then eventually spread. So it might be like a one exclusive or a one and a PC. Like I noticed they're doing a lot of like PC and one.
Yeah.
So
it makes sense because they're both technically Microsoft systems. One that really caught me off guard just because it did it so perfectly was... It's hard to even explain. A game called Cuphead.
Yeah, okay. I was wondering if you'd bring this one up. Yeah.
I really can't even figure out how they did it so seamlessly, because they basically made a game that looks like you're like a side-scroll brawler game, but it's like an old Disney cartoon.
Yeah.
Like right down to all of the old facial expressions, like the old black and white or like slightly sepia tone colored ones. But they really nailed the style down perfectly on the game as far as I can tell, and it looks like a blast to play with.
Yeah.
So really looking forward to seeing more of that one. Another one that seemed to be kind of big on their list was Drifter. It had a really kind of stylish top-down pixel style to it.
Okay.
It's hard to...
Yeah, I'm trying to remember that one.
Yeah, anyway, it looks like they've put a fair amount of effort into making it look really nice. The last one that caught my eye, mostly because it psychs me up for another game, was one called Wolf, WOOLFE.
Oh, okay.
It's a Red Riding Hood hack and slash. And it really looks like they've gotten the tone of like a dark Red Riding Hood sort of noir film kind of nailed down.
Yeah.
It looks pretty cool. She's fighting off like nutcracker soldiers and all sorts of other things. So yeah, mostly it makes me look forward to another game that I funded on Kickstarter.
Okay, so it wasn't that.
No,
okay.
It's not.
I was wondering
if
it was that one or okay.
But that's the end of the ones that I picked up on, at least on the indie scene. I'm sure there were quite a few more, but I'm mostly into the artsy stuff, so this is more along my lines.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely had a fair selection, a nice variety of titles, it seemed like. So.
Yeah, there were a lot more than this, too. There were probably 3 times as many, but they sort of shot them at you machine gun style, so it was kind of difficult.
Sony did a similar thing, too. I was like, when I was writing down my notes, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to get every single one of these, so I'll just write, like, especially X number of this or something,
right?
Like
Especially in Microsoft presentation, they had the actual company designed logos as the images down at the bottom to say like who it was. So when they're zoomed down to that size, like in the very corner of a page, it's kind of difficult even reading a lot of them. But
yeah.
Anyway. Moving on from that, it ends up being a kind of a fuzzy territory for me, because I know it's a big deal for a lot of these presentations to do the big world premiere of a lot of games.
Yeah.
And so you kind of get that under your belt. But it's nice to have some sort of follow-up, like, oh, we're going to have it a few months ahead of another system and whatnot.
Yeah.
But a lot of these weren't necessarily promising that. But nevertheless, the premieres that they ended up showing on the Xbox E3 presentation were Tomb Raider, the next one.
Yeah, man, I was like, yes!
I unfortunately, there's like a little bit of spoilers for me since I haven't completed the last one. I mean, it shouldn't be anything big. Of course, she's going to survive and whatnot. But it looks really cool because it's basically her trying to come to grips with all of the emotional challenges that happened. And so it has a bunch of stuff with her talking to a psychiatrist and her like going out and hunting and yeah,
Yeah.
As far as all of the footage goes, it looks like it's gameplay footage and not just cutscenes and everything else. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful game. I'm not surprised. The last one and its sort of re-release were both very beautiful games.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
having it built specifically towards a next generation system, I have no doubt they're going to make a really wonderful game here.
Yeah, yeah. When that was first going, I was like, "Wait, what is this?" Because the
Right.
hood's over
Yeah.
her head, and she's sitting down. And I was like, "Wait a minute!" And then she's got a bow, and she's running through. I'm like, "Oh my, no!
Right.
This is Tomb Raider 2. This got to be Tomb Raider 2." And then,
Yeah.
then as soon as you like recognize her face, it's just like, "Yes!" I was like in my chair, like, "Oh yes, yes, yes."
Yeah, it's weird too because it ends up resonating for me a little bit more having Lara Croft being like sort of a weird like emo chick. I don't know why. But yeah, it definitely takes it a step farther, or seems to take it a step farther with her transition into being like the ultimate gunfighter that she ends up being in the games that we're more familiar with from the past.
Yeah. So, Rise of the Tomb Raiders.
Right.
The name of it so far.
I'm probably not gonna get the subtext right on most of these, as far as the names of them.
Oh,
but
I will say, since it is tied with Tomb Raider,
uh-huh.
it wasn't during the press conference, but it was announced during E3.
Uh-huh.
A sequel to the Tomb Raider Guardian of the Light.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like Tomb Raider Temple of Osiris, I think, or something like that. It's
Okay.
going to be a 4-player co-op. Same sort of style. Guardian of the Light was a lot of fun.
Right.
I never finished it. I still want to go back and
Critically
finish
acclaimed too.
Yeah,
which was
it
rare
was-
for the older style of Lara Croft.
But yeah, same style, top down, just around shooter like puzzles and stuff. But now this time you get 4 people, and
Yeah, that should be cool.
yeah, it looks really neat. They showed off some videos and stuff, but it wasn't during the actual press conference. But since it's Tomb Raider, I figured
Right. Yeah.
mention since I
An opportune time.
yeah.
The other thing that they showed was a really large chunk of gameplay from The Witcher 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it looked pretty spectacular also. It's really cool seeing an actual hunt of one of these beasts in this engine, and I can't even really explain it very well, just because yeah, it's a pretty basic like forest setting, you wandering through hills and whatnot, but it's pretty apparent that they made a really natural setting, that you aren't like hard like wired into trying to roam a certain area or anything like this.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it looks like at least from being able to free roam and having an animal try and take you out while you're simultaneously taking it out, it looks like they nailed that down pretty well.
Yeah,
So
and
pretty impressive.
He tracked, like he got an arrow into, was it a griffin?
A griffin, yeah.
And then it started bleeding, and then he was tracking the blood with like on a sense kind of power thing,
Yeah.
and then they during the presentation they brought up the thing about like while you're tracking this beast, you can come across people in the world and other like you could maybe call it side quests or other things. So it's it's like that you can stop what you're doing and interact with those, or you can just bypass them. Like, to me, it made it seem like they wanted to, make it feel like
A real life thing.
world. Like it wasn't just, once you're on this, like you just, everything else is out until you're done. Like everything else is still going on. So you still like.
Yeah, it was interesting to me from the standpoint of somebody who's messed around in the Spark video game, just because they made really well fleshed out environments that seem really natural, but that can end up causing problems with just characters being able to roam that environment, just because you have to make all of these environments really playable and make it feel like you aren't trapped. And basically it looked like they ended up kind of taking a page out of Assassin's Creed from this, is that instead of trying to customize the environment to make it so it's better for the character, they just made the character better for roaming the environment. Which, when you get really good animations for all of that stuff, it looks absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
So another thing that I was really impressed with in that game. Next up, we have Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yes.
I never got terrible invested in the Dragon Age series, so I'll let you take this one if that's cool.
Yeah. I know they mentioned that, like, premium content or whatever. It sounded like DLC or the whatever first sort of extra stuff will be dropping first on Xbox.
Right. Yeah,
that was mentioned during the press thing.
They've done that before with the series, right?
I'm trying to think if it was first on there.
I could have sworn I remembered something like that.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. Yeah, I know it seemed like it's like an open world now, and depending upon the things you do within it will change the environment for good or bad. The part of the story is you're trying to close these gates and whatnot. So depending upon if you close certain ones, that will affect the environment that you're in. So maybe a town that was destroyed might rebuild itself, or maybe you're doing some other action that might cause this town to end up getting destroyed. Or they were playing up that the world, because I think there was a lot of complaints with 2 that the world was very recycled or very small. So this one, it's they're okay, we heard you, bam, here's this open world, and you're going to affect it. And the actions that you do will change things. And they also made it seem like they're taking sort of combat from 1 and 2, because they're letting you, in Origins, you could do combat on the fly, just right while it's happening.
Yeah.
Or you could pause it and assign things and plan it out.
A little bit more tactical stuff.
Yeah, it looks like they're doing that for 3. You can pause the game, go in and assign your teammates to do stuff, or you can just do it live as it's happening. So, because in 2 it was just there wasn't any of that from Origins. It was just straight up just happening. Yeah, happening. I'm spacing on the actual terms for these
live action, real time.
Yeah, real time. It was just but this one, I think there were another thing that I think that people. I mean, I always did real time, so it wasn't a huge deal to me. But for those who did the stopping, planning out, doing it tactical.
That's how I played the first one quite a bit, since I was used to Final Fantasy Tactics as kind of the template for this style of game.
It looks like they're bringing that back with this one, so they're giving you that option, and so I think it just seems like
that's welcome to me.
yeah. I mean, hey, that's cool with me if you can do both. I mean, that just means
the first one, it didn't rope you into it, so it was nice.
Yeah, but I think they're just. It's going to be from what I can tell, it is going to be on last gen systems. But I don't know, versus the current systems now, what's going to be the difference as far as what they're going to have to tone back on or this or that. But it definitely seems like they're taking advantage of the newer systems, what they can do with supposedly, this.
Yeah, it's a much prettier game than what I saw before, which kind of stands to reason. But.
Yeah. so yeah, I'm definitely excited for that. I think it drops in October. There's a lot of big games in October. This October is going to be
yeah, I've heard a lot of people commenting about that. Next up, we have Assassin's Creed Unity.
Yes.
Now, this one threatens to be the Assassin's Creed that will get me back into it, because everything that I've seen of the previous ones has gotten me kind of stuck on one thing that I wasn't a really big fan of. And for a lot of people ended up roping them in to it and making them invest more in it. So that's great for them. But it always bugged me having to tail people so closely and wander around like within 10 feet of them.
Oh, yeah.
And as soon as you aren't able to do that for whatever reason, like you can trip over somebody's foot or something like that. Not that that actually happens, but
Yeah.
then it's like all derailed, and it's like then you're dead. And
no one likes those missions. Like Assassin's Creed fans, no one likes the tailing missions. So you're not alone as far as like.
But it's weird because it's like the core of the game. It's what advances the story and everything. So anyway,
definitely with the early ones, it's like as the series went along, those are definitely still in there, and they're like the bane to everyone's like, oh crap, I got to do a follow mission, but they don't do as many as like the early stuff, like, or especially with the fail aspect to it.
Oh, okay.
But like it seems like they give you a little more room to try and catch up, but yeah, no one likes those, so you're not alone.
Well, it's difficult to tell if it's going to be a similar thing to what it sounds like the more recent games are, where it's just not all of them are this way, but they definitely chose to show off a mission where staying close to the person that you're trying to get is not even like a requirement at all. So and add to that it's a 4-player co-op. That's the Unity side of things.
That's pretty big, and it's just current gen,
right?
Or,
so which made sense to me as far as them nixing the close following thing, just because you finally have systems that can run in the background and treat this other character running around as a separate entity that's actually thinking and so on, without, as soon as you lose line of sight, making it so you lose them from the game's frame of mind. So it showed off that style of gameplay really perfectly, just because you're not even looking at the guy a really good chunk of the time. You're just trying to figure out how to get through this area, and it has the normal like free roaming type of thing where you can split off from all of your friends and try and get a better vantage point on top of the building while they're trying to go through it. And again, graphics upgrade in the game was pretty staggering. It looks it's hard to tell because a lot of it may have been just pre-scripted things for the AI characters to do, but it looked like it had a little bit better responses from the AI characters as well, as far as how they respond to you coming into a room. It didn't seem quite as stilted as a lot of the other games did. But yeah, it's I know it's definitely going to be a big deal for all of the Assassin's Creed fans, but it looks like it has the possibility of roping in a lot of people that kind of didn't get into the game initially also. And if not just for the new tech aspects, but just adding a multiplayer to it. And pretty pretty excellent setting, the French Revolution. I mean, well, okay, that was the one thing to me. It's okay, the French Revolution, it's absolutely perfect for an Assassin's Creed game because it's like nothing but murder happening like all over the place. So having an assassin doing his bit during all of this stuff isn't going to bug much of anybody. But that's the thing that was kind of interesting about it too, is that when it came right down to it, your assassination order or whatever it is you were following, you didn't even actually kill the guy. All you do is hand him over to the masses.
That was cool.
Which during the French Revolution, you kind of know what's going to happen. It's basically the same thing anyway when it's like some sort of nobleman or whatnot. I think it was like the Marquis or something like that. But the other side of it too is that it's going to be incredibly bloody in general. So it's not just you as the assassin doing all of this crazy killing stuff. It's going to be the general public too, which is going to be kind of interesting to see because, I mean, it shows off at the very end of the presentation, like people carting around heads on spikes and everything. And I mean, this isn't Dracula. This is just plain old, like, people roaming the streets.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. It's going to be interesting seeing Americans' reaction to. I mean, it's completely historic event, and it was a big deal for how we ended up forming the republics that we have today. But it's going to be really interesting seeing Americans, where we dealt with a lot of this stuff by having a war type of conflict, whereas the French, like, outright just killed everybody.
Yeah. So. It'll be curious to see how they handle the tone and the feel of it.
But I don't doubt they're going to handle it well. They've done pretty well in the past handling complicated themes like that.
Yeah. And if you are just tuning in on Robots Attack here on KSU Santa Clara 103.3 FM, the Underground Sound, we are talking about E3. This is part 2 of E3. We're hitting up the Microsoft press conference.
Right. Okay. And now that I'm done with the premieres, which, again, my view is kind of shifty territory just because they're not necessarily exclusives for a game or for a console company like Microsoft to be showing off, but it's still a big deal because they get to show off something for the first time.
Yeah, because I had to mention what was kind of surprising with the Assassin's Creed is normally that's at the Sony press conference.
Oh, okay.
Because usually they do. I can't remember if there was something about like content showing up first for Unity on Xbox, but usually Assassin's Creed's at the Sony press conference, and usually they get some kind of first little content or something.
Yeah, it is interesting. So it seems like a lot of games kind of ended up swapping between companies. Not necessarily that they ever started out with one company or another, but like Destiny especially becoming like a flagship Sony title when its lineage is very much Microsoft.
Yeah, and then there's a flip with, I don't know if you're going into this next, but maybe it'll be a segue to it, but like Insomniac showing off there.
Right, with Sunset Overdrive, which I'll go ahead and use. Sunset Overdrive, they didn't exactly do a premiere for it or anything like that because they'd shown a lot of stuff for it before, but they did... A pretty good presentation, making you kind of think that it's some sort of weird next-gen Battlefield type of thing, and then having one of the wild characters from Sunset Overdrive kind of take it over. It looks like it's... I hate saying this because it sounds like, it's boring. It looks like it's more of the same stuff. It's like absolutely crazy weapons and... putting a lot of the emphasis on being able to traverse the environment while carrying off these big kill streaks and whatnot. Yeah. But the main thing is that this game is a breath of fresh air for a lot of the different games out there. Not as far as them having a completely different play style than anything else, because it's really just an amalgam of a lot of things.
Yeah.
The main thing is just having a colorful environment that's actually fun.
Yeah, the tone is so different.
Right, and everything's completely tongue-in-cheek. I can't do the full quote, but I loved it in this one that you have the character kind of do a side like animated thing, like talking about like, this is Sunset City and everything, and him talking about are you up to the task of being able to take on all of these horrible things and save the day? And I can't say all the words because they were bleeped even in that.
Yeah.
But of course you are. It's a video game.
Yeah.
Having that sort of thing be sort of the centerpiece of a game like that is a lot of fun to me. Since most of these games take themselves so incredibly seriously that it's just tiring.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's like, it's this, sort of apocalyptic setting, but it's like, there are people who drank this like tainted energy drink that mutated them, and then you're just running around. Yeah,
and as far as we can tell, like you destroying their newly formed zombie bodies, it like spills the energy drink all over the place too. Which is like some sort of completely crazy orange glowy color, which nobody should have drank in the first place. But let's face it, people would.
Yeah, and it's Insomniac, of course, so it's got wacky, crazy weapons. I mean, it was like TN Teddy, I think, was one. It's like a teddy bear with a...
This one highlighted like a freeze cannon, and it showed off some of the kind of build-up abilities. Like, they've shown it off once before in a kind of peripheral footage, but one of the build-up abilities is that you get enough combo, and it increases your chances of setting off, like, a nuclear explosion.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, and having everything being animated, like, sort of old-style Batman style, except in pretty 3D, colorful graphics is kind of interesting, too.
Yeah, and then at the... Not necessarily in the press conference again, but during E3 at the... Like, Microsoft had a community thing that people can go to. They showed off that there's going to be, like, a multiplayer aspect to it. It's like a chaos mode or something like that, like 8 players...
Yeah, a lot of the early artwork for the game made it seem like it was going to be multiplayer heavy, so I'm glad to hear that that's at least going to be an aspect of it. But yeah, the big thing for me, like, since the main character that they showed off in this one, I mean, he's kind of a cool punk rock looking guy and everything, but the thing that really gets me is being able to completely change your character to whatever you like. And a lot of, like, I think one of the concept drawings had a woman, like, done up completely in Wonder Woman gear, except it was, like, street gear. It just looked really hilarious and fun to try and play with something like that. Next up...
Before you get to that...
Yes.
Let me do our PSA just so then you can jump right into... Breaking Out of the Box... Sponsored by the City of Santa Clara's Cultural Commission, Breaking Out of the Box art exhibition opened April 17th of this year. The exhibition, juried by members of the Cultural Commission and staff from the Triton Museum of Art, filled the corridors of City Hall with a wide variety of beautiful and thought-provoking sculptures. Admission is free, and the Triton Museum of Art is conveniently located across the street. Stop by and enjoy lovely works of art by some of the finest artists in Northern California. For more information and operating hours, call 408-615-22110. That's 408-615-2210.
Nice. The next game that really caught me off guard because I hadn't heard anything about it, and it was another one of these, like, video game creator coups, was Scalebound.
Yes.
It looks like basically Devil May Cry with dragons.
Yeah. Platinum Games, I think, is the company.
Right.
They did Bayonetta and a couple others.
Right.
So.
The big thing, though, is that the director of the game is of Zelda fame from Link to the Past. So him, like, jumping ship on Nintendo to do something like this that's an actual exclusive.
Yeah, actual Xbox exclusive.
is kind of interesting. But to me, it speaks to also... how much game designers miss the old Devil May Cry feel also. Like, the new one was pretty cool and everything, but it didn't quite capture the spirit of the old game at all.
Okay.
And that's one thing that came out to me in this one, maybe having a little bit younger version of a Devil May Cry character, but still that completely... Devil May Care sort of attitude.
Yeah.
Coupled up with what's becoming a bigger kind of concept in a lot of games and role-playing games lately is having sort of a half-dragon type of character, which I'm surprised a lot of more video games haven't really explored more.
Yeah.
But this one seems to incorporate sort of a... like a versus Titan type of thing along with it, since you seem to have some sort of control over the dragons themselves. So I don't know how that's going to be handled, if it's just an outright swap or you trying to control them, but it ends up making for some interesting scenes just as far as you taking on all of these giant crazy monsters and having in your thrall like this giant dragon, but it still has the classic, as best I can tell, like monster battles versus with like just a regular character running around with a sword. And it kind of copies the attitude right down to the character actually stops to put on his headphones and listen to like Walkman music.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if they can carry off a game like that and have it be as perfectly balanced as I hope it'll be. But mostly it's just really interesting seeing that sort of game from that person coming into the Xbox universe.
Yeah, and then seeing if sort of the way like the trailer kind of ends, if it's like you and your buddies going on to take on this giant Hydra. So, if it's like going to be some multiplayer aspect to it, where...
Yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions.
Yeah.
and we'll be definitely... I'll be keeping track of it.
It was one of those where, like, Microsoft broke down their presentation with, like, here are the games that are coming out 2014.
Right.
And then Phil Spencer came out and then, it was like, okay, here are those stuff that's coming out in 15 and beyond. And so it was part of the
Beyond.
15 and beyond.
Yeah.
So, and then they did a thing where Sony broke up some of their presentation with like, they did a segment I mentioned last week about like having people write in letters. And so they kind of paired that us with this.
Right.
Microsoft did a thing where it was like they asked developers, asked people like, "What's your favorite game?" or "What's
or
this?"
your
like,
first game and stuff like that.
And they broke up the conference, the press conference with those kind of segments,
while masterfully maintaining the all about games vision too, which it worked out pretty well. Some of I feel like a lot of the developers' responses were uninspired or not like terrible interesting just because they were really like obvious games for a lot of them. Yeah. But still, it was fun seeing the ones that were obviously really passionate about a game and seeing how that like possibly twists their view on the game that they were creating.
Yeah.
Let's see. The next up exclusives, these shouldn't be any sort of surprise whatsoever. Forza has been doing really well. And for a lot of people is considered like the racing game. So Horizon 2 coming out and adding a much more multiplayer aspect to it was pretty expected in my view.
Yeah, being more of a driving simulator than versus like a racing kind of simulator.
And it is really nice seeing a lot of games have tried to do it by having sort of chunks of the United States as like representations, but this one looks like it's trying to duplicate the United States, and it zooms out at the very end of it to show all of your different potential friends. Which you can have, what was it, up to 500 or something like that? Yeah. Just within the game.
Remember. Yeah.
So anyway, you can have this massive troop of people that you're keeping in contact with, and they're trying to make it its own social network sort of thing.
Yeah.
Within a driving simulator. But it seems to do a really good job of duplicating these places like Mount Rushmore and a lot of other iconic places really well.
Yeah.
And one thing that they did for the presentation that showed sort of the depth of the game really quickly was having one of those advanced speed type of things where, since it's a video game, it stays centered on the car, so the car stays pretty much in focus, but as you're speeding up and going through all of these places, just seeing basically the entire United States blur past was pretty interesting, especially when it was going through areas that we're actually like halfway familiar with in this chunk of the United States.
And if I remember right, it's going to have day and night and weather.
Yeah, that's what it looks like, and it looks pretty spectacular as far as that stuff goes too.
Yeah,
but it's hard to tell because a lot of it was sped up. So
it's one of those. It's like I'm not like a huge racing gamer, but 20 Horizon 2, I might pick that one up.
Well, it's funny for me because to me, the game that made me buy the PS2 was Gran Turismo. And so it's always been weird for me switching to Xbox and them having really good racing games in their own right. But like a racing game will always be Gran Turismo 4 to me.
Okay.
So it's difficult for me. Next up, in the not too crazy that it came out type of thing, a new Fable game, although it is a completely different twist on the Fable games. Fable Legends, 4-player co-op with kind of a nifty twist is that it ends up sort of being 5-player co-op, except that one of the 5 players is trying to ruin all your plans as the bad guy.
One player plays the bad guys, the dungeon master, if you will.
Right, exactly. And it's going to be interesting to me to see reviews when that comes out, just because I can't imagine how difficult the balancing must be for them to make that sort of character.
Yeah.
But it looks like they've basically tried to do a system not too different than the commander roles in the Battlefield series, where you're dropping sort of crates of baddies to end up fighting against people. But it looks like it still has completely solidly scripted stuff built into it. Like it ends up ending with a troll fight, but it's coming out of a cave that's sized for a troll. So I don't think that was like dropped onto the battlefield but randomly. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of level of control the bad guy has.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they mentioned you can sign up for, they're going to have like a beta this year.
Which I actually signed up for. It's the first time I've actually tried to get into anything Fable related, so which I feel weird about since I actually own a couple of the games from the free with gold thing. But anyway.
But yeah, I think that would be definitely a good game for them to like to beta and test and get feedback and see okay, is this work? Does this do the villains or the villain is that system work? How about the heroes? Is it?
Yeah, and the heroes too, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if they're going to just stick with those 4 heroes or if there's going to be more unlockable ones or what. But what I thought was interesting was they definitely were trying to break a lot of boundaries with the heroes. It seemed like the main character was a fighting bard, if I'm not wrong. And he looked like he could really throw down. So that looked pretty good, especially since a lot of his sort of wisecracks are about basically looking flashy and being able to do things with style. I thought that was pretty cool. And if they can carry it off, I mean, that's great, especially for us old D&D guys who have mercilessly slaughtered bards' reputations in the past. And then sort of the fighter seemed to be a very large Nordic woman in armor. So a lot of it was kind of just tweaking expectations, it seemed like, for these sort of characters. The sort of mage class was like a female mage that does ice sort of magic. It didn't look like there was anything completely out of bounds there. It seems like it's more of like the brooding style of character. But it looks like they've put a lot more emphasis into having kind of the feedback from the characters where they have a voice instead of just being like the shadow in the background. It reminds me kind of Borderlands in that way.
Okay.
Is that you get a feel for who you are. So I think that's kind of nice. As far as not completely expected, I actually mentioned it a little bit earlier. They ended up bringing back Dance Central with Dance Central Spotlight.
I was wondering if you were going to be happy about this.
I'm ecstatic about it. But it's funny because I felt bad for the guy who had to present it because it felt like he wanted to be talking about Fantasia, but just couldn't really get into talking about this game all that much, because Fantasia is definitely like the big obvious thing, but it's so Connect related, and they're trying to step away from it.
Plus, that game is so hard to explain. Like you just have to kind of see it and try it for yourself. It's like trying to explain it. It's difficult. It's like I tried a little bit of it last year at Comic-Con. It was a lot of fun, but then like trying to explain it to somebody, and it's like, no, it really does. It sounds a lot better than I'm like explaining it. It's difficult, but Dance Central, it's kind of easy to.
To me, it's a little bit easier to understand what you're talking about, just because Dance Central kind of gave me that taste a lot more, where I didn't expect any of these moving games to be a big deal, but Dance Central really drafts you into it and makes you excited about the music and actually getting the moves right and everything. So yeah, it's nice to see one on there, and it looks like the big push on the technology this time around is getting more music into the system much faster, and so they actually built in engines to make that easier.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting seeing how well implemented that is.
And it's a download only title, so
which makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
cut on
also
the cost, and so
but I'm really ecstatic about it. I know I don't sound like ultimately ecstatic, but mostly because I have to get through a lot of stuff relatively quick. Next up, we had one that came out of left field that I wasn't expecting at all, and I'm not sure how I feel about either. One called Phantom Dust.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
They sort of saved it for the end, so I couldn't tell if it was kind of like burying it or if that was supposed to be like one of their big finishing punches. But it looks like it has a kind of cool style, but it's territory that we've seen before in other games where you delve into a separate reality that's overlaid onto the current reality type of thing.
Yeah.
But it looks like in that separate reality, it unleashes magical powers and stuff like that. So,
and it's, because they had the guy who worked, I apologize, I don't remember his name, but he helped bring Killer Instinct back.
Oh, right.
And he kind of teased the season 2 for Killer Instinct. He mentioned like TJ Combo, I think is the name of the character, something like that, a boxer guy coming in season 2.
Yeah, and the footage of that actually looks pretty cool.
Yeah. And then he started talking about like, we're bringing back another like Xbox original, like, we're redoing it, bringing it back. And so like I'm thinking like, oh, okay, what are they, what is this? What are they going to do? And then it was like Phantom Dust, right?
Right.
And so I think like I'm not familiar with that Xbox game, original Xbox game, and I think a lot of people aren't, but yeah, it's, from what I can tell, supposedly like it was a Xbox original game that was popular on the original Xbox, and they're bringing it back, but I really knew nothing about it.
Yeah, it's tough for me, especially because with the original Xbox, I was still deep into PlayStation territory.
Yeah, I only owned a few games for the original Xbox, so yeah, when they mentioned it, I was like, okay. And I think a lot, it's like I kind of felt bad because I think like a lot of people sort of had the same kind of feeling, like, I don't know this game, like that's cool, but and then like you said, they're kind of near towards the end of the conference, and so you're like, I think this was going to be a bigger hit than they,
right?
They originally thought it would be, but it
was
fell
like one of those
flat.
places where it felt like it kind of fell flat. But that is basically the end of the exclusives, best I can tell. But they did show a ton of extra footage for games that have been shown off quite a bit. Kind of the big masterpiece that they're trying to push that's standard for Xbox is the new Call of Duty.
Well, there were a couple other exclusives.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
They ended the conference with Crackdown.
Oh, I actually had that here, and I was checking
basically bringing Crackdown back, bringing like the original creator on it. I guess he didn't do 2 or something, and 2 a lot of people didn't really care for, but they loved 1. And so, bringing him back and like bringing, from what it sounds like, the destructible environments, like it's going to be really heavy like cloud-based stuff, and like they're I'm at least from the trailer it seemed like possibly 4-player co-op. So, and it would make sense. I mean, a lot of games now, it's like that's kind of the big thing is if you're going to have co-op, it's like 4-player co-op now. Right. So,
especially for Microsoft, it's always been a big push for them. So yeah, that was like their finale, like, and one more thing, you know, like to end it on. And then the other one, I'm not terribly surprised that you didn't mention, but the Master Chief collection. Oh yeah. So yeah, the neat thing to me about that was just them creating the television series to go along with introducing you to the next run of the Halo games.
Yeah.
So, and that's unlocked with you purchasing that series. So
yeah
I assume there's going to be other ways to see it too. But
yeah, I think Halo Nightfall. Yeah, I mean, I know that's part of their TV thing, but yeah, I think it was attached with that. And then they're like redoing the graphics 60 frames per second, you know, for all the games. They're not like the big thing is, see, like I really enjoy Halo, but I do like I play more of the single player than the multiplayer, which for most people is reversed. It's reversed for the most part, or they do kind of both, but multiplayer is a bigger deal.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people like loved Halo 2 multiplayer, and so they mentioned that they're bringing back, you know, multiplayer for all of them, and they're not like changing anything. Like Halo Anniversary Edition, if memory serves, it had multiplayer, but it was like based on, I think, either Reach or 4's multiplayer. So like there were sort of rumblings about like, you know, an anniversary for Halo 2 coming out this year, because I think it's like the 10-year anniversary or something for it. So they were like, oh no, are they going to change the multiplayer? Because a lot of people like that's kind of like the definitive multiplayer experience for Halo for a lot of people. But they came out and said like, we're not touching it. It's going to be exactly the same, you know, but with, you know, 60 frames per second, you know, upgrade graphics, all that sort of stuff. But we're leaving everything the same. You're going to have Halo 1 through 4, all together in one. You're going to get access to Halo 5 beta. And, you know, so it's like this huge collection that most likely I'll end up picking up as well. But yeah, that was like the other sort of, I think, big kind of exclusive thing.
But yeah, but that brings us to sort of the more footage territory that they actually ended up using as sort of the starting of their entire presentation, and that's the Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. They're doing kind of the classic thing that Xbox has done with every Call of Duty game.
Yeah.
They're getting it first. They're going to have it for a month before everybody else.
Yeah,
They're
the DLC is dropping first. Yeah.
Right. So, this is the first time you see a really decent sized chunk of the game and basically the full capabilities of what your character is able to do in it.
Yeah.
And it's both really, really impressive and kind of scary, just as far as I don't know if the kind of classic Call of Duty people are going to eat this up as much as they hope. But to me, it's far future. It's ultimate tech stuff, and a lot of it just makes me like giggle with glee.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of people complaining about one of the things that I think is the coolest thing in the world is the advanced grenades, where you can select different types of grenades by like pushing a button on top, and it has like a little readout saying which type it is.
Oh, okay.
And one of the types that you can select is like a seeker grenade. I think they have a different name for it, but you basically throw it and it guides itself to a target to do an aerial pop.
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of weapons are kind of built around these days,
Yeah.
so that you don't waste the area effect of an explosion.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a grenade that's meant to optimize how a grenade should work.
Yeah.
And that's very nice in a game like this. The other thing that they showed off a little bit more, well, I don't know if it's for the first time or not, but they showed off sort of laser cannons for the first time.
Oh, yeah.
And they carried them off in a way that it didn't make them look like some sort of cheesy like G.I. Joe or Moonraker type of thing.
Yeah.
So I was pretty happy with that. It makes it look like it's a stream, like basically a really fast-firing LMG or something like that is what it seems to equate to. It doesn't seem like it's completely and totally like deadly powerful or anything like that. It's mostly just that you have a stream of fire instead of having bullets that you can possibly miss things in between.
Yeah.
So it's kind of nice that they kept something like that fairly well balanced as far as I can see.
Yeah.
The other side of it is that this is all the single player stuff, which Call of Duty has a nasty habit of getting us hooked on guns and special things and whatnot, and then leaving them out of multiplayer. So how much of this is going to make it to multiplayer, we have no idea. Hopefully a fair amount, and usually it's like 90% of everything. But
Yeah.
I'm still sad that they don't have like Dragonfire rounds from the first.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, it looked like they were trying to do the typical Call of Duty thing, like attach the heartstrings to the character a little bit more, and it looked like they had a pretty good ending to make you go like, oh dang.
Yeah, with the arm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We won't spoil it completely, but yeah, it I can see how it would make you become fairly attached to a character and be like, oh, what's going to happen next type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then again, it's the far future, so who knows? Any number of
Yeah.
solutions could crop up.
Yeah, I think it's 50 years in the future. I think
Right.
That's what they said. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I mean, it was cool seeing it's like, yeah, this is, Xbox One footage they
Right.
showed, and they're like, and Sledgehammer said like, yeah, we're
Really pretty.
we're developing this game for current gen
Right.
systems, and it sounds like it's going to be sort of a similar thing that I think that Titanfall like Titanfall did the previous generation, like they're going to hand it off to
A different
developer
to adapt it.
Yeah. So that'll be nice. It's like this is the first one that's had 3 years to work on it, and it's a solid team, Sledgehammer, and so it's like there's a lot riding on it, and it's like for a lot of people complaining about Call of Duty not trying different things, like
Right.
They are trying some different stuff. And
it's getting to the point where Call of Duty is a no-win scenario because half of the people are going to complain that it's not doing enough, and the other half are complaining that it's changing.
Yeah, it's changing too much or just copying something else or something where it's like,
It is a video game. It has to advance somehow.
Yeah, it's one of those, you can't please everybody. But,
yeah.
But
I can, since I'm much more acquainted with how, well, I'm much more comfortable with that realm of possibilities than a lot of people. So it's funny too. Like I think I'd mentioned this once before, is that a lot of people complained a ton about how much different Black Ops 2 was, and how it made it too futuristic, and they weren't sure that they were going to buy it, and that they didn't like all the colors being weird. And it's weird now with Ghosts coming out, and now a lot of people consider Black Ops 2 like the definitive last Call of Duty game, and so it's always really weird to me. I don't know how long it's going to take for Ghosts to become like the definitive one that everybody loves, but it seems like it's always like a generation or two back from whichever one's out, and then people start coming out of the woodwork and saying, oh, I actually really loved that game.
Yeah, or That series, it's the 800-pound gorilla or whatever you want to call it. It's the one that's like it's easy to hate on, or it's like all the complaints like, oh, it's just the same game, with a new poster on the front, new
Right.
game art, blah blah blah, and like, all right,
To a certain
at some
extent,
point.
but 50% no.
Yeah, and at some point it's like then okay, don't buy it. Like that's
Right.
not the only video game in the world. There are thousands. If you don't like it, don't buy it. Play
Right.
something else. Let the people who like it play it. It's like I just
If you love Battlefield so much, stick with Battlefield.
yeah, I don't get it. But here's something that's easy to get. If you want to listen to KSU even when you're not near a radio, you can stream us whenever you want. KSU.org or on the TuneIn Radio app or website. Never be without the underground sound. And look for the call letters, not the...
Yeah, don't look for numbers.
Yeah.
Look for letters.
Because the 103.3 is not just located in
everywhere.
Santa Clara. So,
Unless you want Radio Peru.
yeah.
I don't know if that's literally one of them, but that's my classic. Throw it in. Classic as in I said it last week, so I'm saying it again now.
Yeah.
In the more footage territory, we also have more of Evolve.
Yes.
One that's really
Yeah, they
caught me.
showed off the brand new monster with this trailer.
Right, brand new monster and all of the new characters
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, this one completely caught me off guard how much I've gotten attached to it also.
Yeah.
The earliest thing that I saw was somebody just talking about the signage for the game and how perfectly it represents the game with just a really brilliant, easy thing is that they break up Evolve into its components so that you have one letter being a chunk that's roughly the size of 4 of the other letters.
Oh, okay.
And so it ends up being that just by spelling out Evolve, it's that balance between the mountain monster and the 4 characters. And ever since I saw that, I've been kind of hooked on the idea of the game. I think it's really cool. It's from the people who made the Left 4 Dead series. And so it's a completely different direction than they went before. It's not hordes and hordes of stuff. It's just one big baddie. And it looks like they've done pretty cool stuff. The early stuff that we'd seen, it seemed like a basic, like really tough regenerative type of monster.
Yeah, the Goliath, I think it was called.
Right. This one, it seems more Cthulhu-ish.
Yeah, it's the Kraken.
Right. It's got the tentacle face and everything like that. And it's really interesting seeing how these monsters kind of evolve, which we sort of missed in this one, since the monster was kind of always in the periph.
Yeah.
And mostly it was showing off the new characters, one of which is a robot, so that really got me. That's a robot story for the evening. But yeah, it looks like they had a lot of fun trying to figure out how to balance these things perfectly, and the last chunk of gameplay that I saw, it made it really interesting just because it looked like it was nail biting down to the very last second, like who was going to carry this off. So this one was more of just a show off everything and how beautiful the game is, new characters and everything like that. But still something that I'm really interested in seeing how well executed it turns out.
And it looks like, from what I hear, it's one of those games that's trying to push like you working with your team. Like if the 4 of you don't communicate, don't work together, it's like you're going to get killed.
Yeah, and that was like the big hallmark for Left 4 Dead too, and what really made it seemed like, because you can't be some sort of lone gunman in that game. And it's funny, it seems like it's kind of they realized the most harrowing moments in the Left 4 Dead series is when you came across the witches. Oh. And it's almost like they built an entire game around that sort of thing.
And it's another one that's, I believe, like DLC first on Xbox, and there's going to be a beta, I think.
That's right.
Exclusive
beta, which I'm surprised that's become like a big thing, but I'm happy for it. Yeah. I'm going to try and get into it. In the more footage category, we have The Division.
Yes. Oh man,
This is another one of those where they've pushed it back and back and back, and it makes me sad because I want it now.
But that just means it'll be even better.
It's true, and if you're not familiar with it, there's two kind of big core concepts of the game. The number one is that it's a 4-player multiplayer, but you're in a world where you can come across the other 4-player multiplayer people and throw down, but it's still in this sort of post-apocalyptic New York sort of setting.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're trying to scavenge weapons and survive. And kind of the big hallmark of it, as far as I can tell from a gameplay standpoint, is that everything's on the fly, with you being able to alter how your character's characteristics, what sort of perks, for lack of a better word, you have, and what sort of tech you can throw down. You basically have a cache of points that you can reorganize on the fly to use whatever stuff that you've unlocked, which looks like it could really make it interesting. So you're not roped into something, and so you can adapt to your friends' play styles a lot better, which is really nice. If you're used to Borderlands and trying to play with somebody that you have a tricked out character that works perfectly the way you like it to, and then you realize that, well, I'm playing with this person a little bit more, I should probably tech into a certain other area that I wasn't as psyched about, but it would keep this other person alive a lot more. They basically fixed that, where you aren't hardwired into that sort of stuff. I mean, Borderlands came up with ways around it too, but still, it looks like that's a main thrust of this game.
Yeah.
But the other side of it that's really intriguing to me is that from the developer standpoint, this is a completely and totally different type of game than anything that's come out before, in my view. It's based around an engine that's all about being able to construct things really quickly on the fly, where it builds a rounded out environment with garbage and whatever other things built into it. This is the type of stuff that I was really kind of geeking out about with the next gen stuff, just because from a developer standpoint, if you do it right, you can make the machine do all the work for you. You can create a scenario and have the basic idea of an environment and rough that out and just have the computer do all the rest for you. And from the stuff that they've shown off, it looks like it really shines as far as doing that and makes a seamless thing, despite it being such a weird type of idea. And the thing that was released not that long ago, like a month or two back, was that okay, we're not ready for this game to be shipped out anytime soon, because basically we just put the finishing touches on this engine. And that's when they released all this stuff about the engine, and that's when I started geeking out heavily, because I've never seen anything like this. And basically the big pitch also, as far as I'm concerned, is that especially for the Xbox 360 with all of the cloud stuff, them being able to that's right. With the Xbox One being so cloud heavy, it allows them to throw these types of scenarios onto the system much more readily than the PlayStation 4. I was about to say PlayStation 3. Totally stuck in last gen. But anyway, so it sounds like their big thrust with the DLC so far has been kind of angling towards PlayStation 4. So that's why it's kind of interesting seeing all of the Division stuff popping up a lot more on the Xbox side of things. It's sort of this weird back and forth with a lot of these games.
Yeah, that like, I mean, I was already going to pretty much get the Division day one, but when it said okay, DLC first on Xbox, like, okay, that just makes it even better.
So yeah, this is definitely one of the games I'm really psyched for, and every little bit of stuff that is trickled out of the sphere has been pretty cool to me.
Yeah, it's like this and Destiny. Just I'm excited for these games that are like featuring sort of like getting like a small group of your friends to roll together,
Mhm.
and like that just like gets me pumped up. Like,
Yeah.
that's like one of the things I'm excited about Destiny. It's like a 3-man team. Like, wow, there's me, you, and Jay. That's
Right.
perfect. And figuring out like, okay, what class are you going to be? This or that, and just like then the division. Like, okay, the 3 of us can go roll out, and then oh crap, we're going to run into this other group. We're going to take
Right.
down and take their stuff or see what they have, and just like, oh, if we, somebody knows who has a tablet, like having
Yeah.
them on is a little. Sentry kind of thing, and
Yeah, it made me wonder how many
it's-
people are going to try and set up like dummy accounts or secondary accounts so that they could have a tablet at their side just as like calling in fire support for themselves.
Yeah, I just, man, the gadgets and stuff though. They're like when they showed off fighting those guys and like the flash. I can't remember if it was like a flash grenade or something. It like
they're sort of what appears. Well, it's a nifty little bit of tech that already exists, but they tried to do it in the Ghost game with something called the 9-bang.
Oh yeah, okay.
And it seemed like they didn't carry it out as well as I was hoping. But yeah, it's like a multi-flash. It ends up looking like a lightning storm in a confined area.
Yeah.
And it's pretty crazy, and I can't even imagine how disorienting it would be if you were point blank on the thing. But yeah, the funnest, the most interesting thing to me so far is the little tripod guns that you can set up.
Yeah.
Because they've put in like a machine gun variant where it's like an automatic tracking little thing, and with everything shaping the way it is right now, I can totally imagine them rigging up some little tripod that the thing that's special about it is the tripod, and you just throw a gun on it and it does all the work. This one, it showed off something like that, except it seemed to be some sort of flamethrower. So, that looked pretty interesting to me.
And then just seeing like they show off like that group of guys. I can't remember if it was like a garbage truck they were driving, but they had the flamethrowers and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and little mouse grenades too are pretty interesting idea to me.
Yeah. If they can pull off what they've been showing with that game, it's that's gonna be so fun to play.
I hope so. I hope so. It's a big step in a much different direction than a lot of these games are used to. So
yeah. Let me read our last PSA of the night. If you're an animal lover who wants to help homeless animals find their forever homes but have limited time to volunteer, you can join San Jose Animal Advocates, a local nonprofit that is building a community network to help find loving foster and forever homes for pets in our local shelters. With your help, we can save countless animals. All it takes is a few clicks, and you can share their stories with your network of friends. It's easy. Join them at sjanimaladvocates.org or look for them on Facebook. Yeah, it was overall, I mean, I will mention, because you brought up Project Spark.
Mm-hmm.
They mentioned like it getting a regular, like actually releasing at some point, I want to say.
And that's been an interesting thing to me, just because nobody knows what that means, really, because nobody knows what the difference between the beta and the actual version are going to be, because the beta is really fleshed out. So
then they're adding, like, it looked like they were adding like space stuff to it. So
it'll be nice to have future as a little bit more of an option on that. Since right now it's pretty much just fantastical stuff.
And then they're throwing in, I'm not exactly sure how this is working, but the Conquer character, I guess, is going to be
It looked funny to me, because it basically has Conquer come out and say, complaining about me not having a new game. Yeah, make it. Let me see. To me, the big thing that's missing on that so far, and I can understand it being a huge sticking point too, because it's a whole different can of worms, is having much more audio control than you have currently in the beta. So I can't imagine having a Conquer game without having more audio control, personally. So
that was pretty much Microsoft's
it's pretty much all of it. They also showed off some stuff from Destiny, but I mean, that's pretty much been hashed over anyway. So.
Yeah, that was Sony opened up with that, and but yeah, overall I would say, I mean, again, I don't know, like I was mentioning, it's like I can't honestly say if it's a little bit of bias, but between Sony's and Microsoft's, I think Microsoft's press conference, I liked it better. I liked that when Phil came out, he acknowledged like our friends at Sony and Nintendo, like this is an awesome time for gamers. Like this, it just felt more welcoming. There wasn't any like stabs at anyone. Like he just came out and were just like, hey, this is awesome for gamers. Here's our, here's what we have. Here's how we want to, make this the best place to play your games. Like it wasn't.
Yeah, it's really interesting because in the last console generation, the last 10 years, basically, there's been a complete and total swap between the two companies in how they handle this sort of stuff. Because back when PlayStation 3 came out, Sony was still much more in America in a Japanese mentality. So you try and stay incredibly civil on everything. You don't ever try and shoot a cannon across the bow of the other person at all. And at some point it evolved, and Sony's entire game plan became much more American, quote unquote, where it's very much in your face, like trying to take pot shots at the other guy. And Xbox ended up wandering the other direction, being like way more civil, like Way of the Samurai sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me because it's exactly how I kind of separated from one system to another, and so I've kind of stayed in the Way of the Samurai way of doing things the entire time.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely acknowledge that they messed up their messaging with the Xbox One.
Right.
More like we didn't show what we should have done, like blah blah blah. Like right. I know there were some interviews where
that they didn't read their audience quite as well as they hoped either.
Yeah, and Phil Spencer, it's like if I had been head of Xbox since the announcement, this is how I would have done it. Type of thing. Like they definitely acknowledge their missteps, and I think that they're trying to do good now and make up for it and show
right.
and show to people. And it's I'm not trying to say like, oh, Sony's evil, like blah blah blah. Like they're horrible, like the Microsoft's the good guys and Sony is the bad guys type of thing. It's like that's definitely not the case. It's just it is interesting sort of how the roles sort of switch. Like, I mean, the PS4 is selling incredibly well, and the Xbox One is too, but it's just like in a lot of people's mindset, the PS4 so far is kind of like, like, oh, that's the system right now.
It seems to be, the way things are standing right now, it looks like that's the system to get for a lot of people. But it's weird because they're still kind of leading the opposite direction. It looks like the Xbox games are actually fighting out a little bit better. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see if that ends up kind of evening out or not. And it puts me in a weird place too, because honestly, right now, I got stuck in stuck makes it sound like a bad thing. I'm in a place where I might actually be able to get a PlayStation 4, and I sort of want one, but it's weird. Like, even with it being the cheaper of the two systems, all I really want it for is the indie games, and so that ends up being like, well, is that worth spending that money for? So I don't know.
Yeah, it's, to me, like, I definitely want the system. I mean, if I have the money when the Order 1886 comes out, that might be like when I would purchase one, because that's like kind of one of the big ones for me. But yeah, it's like,
thematically, it looks like it's the most interesting out of anything that's come out in a long time. Yeah,
but yeah, it is. It's I don't know. It does seem like there's more software for. Maybe more isn't the right word, but there seems to be sort of bigger quote unquote stuff right now on like the One, but it's still like the PS4. It's still like seems to be the one.
Yeah,
and
it's weird for me too. I practically everybody where I work is a PlayStation fanboy, and it can get interesting just because they're very much in your face about it a lot of the time. Like, oh, I can't believe you're an Xbox guy, and I try to explain to them, well, I like Xbox better, but I don't have any problem with PlayStation really. But since you're smack talking, I'll go ahead.
yeah.
But it's funny hearing all of them talk about the ones that have ended up buying a PlayStation 4. None of them are doing anything with it, and they try and say like, "Oh, well, life happens, and you can't do whatnot, and so on." And I get it; they have kids and whatnot.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it was that big of a deal, you'd at least have bought a game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, so you spent $400,
yeah,
played it for a month, and then now it's
for
may or may not
a
be
very
collecting
nice
dust.
Blu-ray player, I suppose. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
It's just sad to me. I hope for them that they get over this entire parenting thing.
yeah. I will say I'll bring up one last game since we didn't really get to hit the third party, the EA and the Ubisoft press conferences.
Right.
Maybe we can, especially when Caleb comes back next week, we can talk. But there is one that I have to mention.
Okay.
Rainbow Six Siege.
I was wondering if you were going to mention that because that one was a big surprise for me also.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of it. I'm completely ready to admit that a lot of what kind of flagged me down initially with The Division was how well orchestrated the gameplay sample was. And I'm sure it was completely and totally scripted, but it made it sound like it was an unscripted, like, oh, hey, look at that. Oh. They did the exact same type of thing in this one. I don't know if it was completely unscripted, but whoever they got to do all the voices and that, it made it feel like it's a multiplayer experience that you want to be in the middle of.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a director out there of commercials who's like specializing in this.
Yeah.
Whoever it is, they're like doing good stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, it says like with the Siege one, it says like it's captured from a multiplayer beta. Like it was, but yeah, I know what you mean. Like the people actually participating on it, like who they are.
Yeah, they could be professionals from EA. We don't know.
Ubisoft, but
yes.
But yeah, like that was like huge. Like that was a huge surprise for me. I knew nothing about it, and just like the concept of it, like it reminded me of the best parts of that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that we saw.
Oh yeah.
To me, like I didn't super care for that movie, but I loved all the like Siege parts, like where they'd go in as a team and show how to do it and all that stuff. Excuse me, because they don't really do a lot of that in a lot of action movies,
right?
So like
it's considered like the boring part in a way, even though it's really high stress.
Yeah, and so to see a game that's like for the most part revolved around that was like, oh, that's really cool. If you can get a group of friends and like, okay, all right, we're going to break in. How are we going to do this? Okay, we got like X amount of like 30 seconds or a minute or something to set up. So, okay, set up the traps. We're going to come in through. Okay, we can bust through the door. All right, send the camera, the little camera through underneath the door. Okay, the guy's over there. All right. It's like, it just seems like if you have a good group of friends, this is going to be fun.
Oh, especially if you have like two rival groups of friends. That's going to be the really big thing.
Swapping between breachers and defenders.
Because they set up some really wild stuff that I really liked. Was you have the people that are like defending, trying to take hostages, but they're not shackled to the place. And so the big part of the drama was like, oh, where's this guy? Where's this guy? He's like the best one. Where is he?
He's outside. I saw him.
Oh, he took out his neighbor.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems like it's going to be like I don't know if it's like one hit death, but it's like you can't
more realistic gunplay.
You can't take much hits, and then once you're out, you're out. So it's
That's what made the like really good guy even more like impressive to me. 'Cause he'd just like stride across rooms, like,
Yeah.
and they'd be all cowering, like, oh, what do we do?
Oh, he took me out. Oh man. Oh, I saw him outside. Oh, but I'm down. Oh.
Right, and everybody knows somebody like that.
Yeah.
Somebody that you fear completely and totally having to run across, and you are so thankful that they're on your team most of the time.
Yeah. But yeah, that's again. I I don't know what year that's coming out. Not this year.
Yeah.
Probably, and maybe not even next year. But yeah, that was a big surprise. That was their like, oh yeah, one more thing they showed, and
Yeah.
I believe it's taking the place of Rainbow Six Patriots.
Right. Yeah.
So, which, sorry for that game, but
Right.
this looks pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's interesting too. Like, it's become a really decent chunk of the sort of sphere around the video game stuff. I heard
Yeah.
a lot of people complaining about how it was a girl being taken hostage,
yeah.
and it was I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if we kind of get past pulling apart every single thing like that.
Well, I don't know. I can kind of. I'm starting. It's interesting, like that sort of thing. I wasn't really like oh, okay, blah blah blah. But as I'm starting to see more things and it like I am starting to notice that like there's talk too about like, well, how come there's no female assassins in
Right.
Unity?
That one I
it's-
understand a lot more.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like I did notice that and was like, I wonder how that's going to be. Like, will that always be the situation? Like, is it always going to be a woman that's taken hostage and you're like having to rescue? Like
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bigger thing to tackle and discuss, but yeah, it's
Well, the interesting thing to me was I was kind of I was looking back at all of the previous games, especially in the Rainbow Six series, where you have hostages and whatnot. I don't remember any female hostages in the previous games that I've played. So this is the first time I've played one or first time I've seen one of these style of games where the hostage is even female. And so that's why it kind of threw me off, because I'm used to taking out rooms full of terrorists that are
Yeah.
standing over scientists and so on. And I mean, heck, that's its own thing. It should have been
Yeah.
like female scientists and so on. But yeah, it ends up being sort of this weird back and forth that I'm a little bit uncomfortable with, because who knows? Maybe the reason why she's a female, or not the reason why she's a female, but
well, you see in an egg.
right. No, like you don't know who that character is or anything like that. It might be a female that completely breaks all of the other definitions of what makes a
Yeah.
stereotypical female. So
Yeah,
yeah.
It's hard since it's just like a vertical slice of stuff. But since it is sort of like a hot button topic right now, it's, it just kind of gets put over in there. And so,
Yeah.
it's I think it's worth exploring, like with video games, like just having that discussion about, okay, where are the female characters? Like, is it,
Yeah, and like
Or-
I said, I completely
Yes.
agree with the Assassin's Creed one.
yeah.
That actually completely blows my mind that they wouldn't have made that a bigger priority.
Yeah, it is
to-
is weird. It's like that's like they've had one, and to their credit, like the assassins have been like they're not white, like
Right.
they've been an
yeah.
Italian,
And
they've
that
been
was their response too, is that
Arabic, and
right, that we have a multicultural, multi-religious,
Yeah.
multi everything.
yeah, but yeah, it is weird that, especially since this one is like 4-player co-op, like,
Right.
But
You'd think that they'd want a little bit more diversity than just dudes
yeah,
in something like that.
but and then even though they didn't show anything, but they like at the EA press conference, most of it was like good chunk of it was sports. No huge
right.
shock, right?
Yeah.
But since BioWare is attached with EA, they spoke with Casey
Yeah.
Hudson, a couple others, and played some Mass Effect music and sort of teased like little things like what's going to next be.
that
And
was,
so
that was dirty pool in my book.
yeah, but I was like, yeah, I was excited and like still like, oh man, I can't wait to see what this is going to be. But yeah, they didn't really show, anything like they didn't show Mass Effect 4 or whatever the next one is. And they just,
it was funny like watching it and be like, I recognize that guy. I've met him.
yeah. Yeah, it was essentially just them talking like, we asked people what they wanted in the next Mass Effect game.
Right.
Talked a little bit about that, and then also talked about like, and we're also working on an entirely new IP as well. And so
that was the interesting thing too, but completely like open-ended. We have no idea what it is or anything like that. So again, like with the dirty pool, it feels it feels like cheating somehow.
Yeah, it's both awesome because it's like, yeah, Mass Effect, take a shot, or on their next game, but then you're like, oh, but it's not anything like yet. It's still
right. Yeah, especially since Mass Effect was their baby for doing that. It was their chance to kind of make their own thing, and so to have them be like, oh, well, here's Mass Effect, well, we're going to start a whole new thing.
Yeah.
But Mass Effect was supposed to be the whole new thing.
Yeah.
So not that they're not working on it, but hopefully it's something that we really enjoy coming out relatively soon. That's all I hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's BioWare. I have faith.
I'm sure they'll
like
do
their
good.
products. So.
Yeah. But it'll also be interesting seeing how many hearts are broken with whatever they create, because that's the other side of what they do. It's sort of like the Call of Duty space. Anything that they choose to do is going to hurt somebody.
Yeah. It's as they've learned from the
ending
vocal
debacle.
minority. Of the ending debacle for 3, they can't please everyone.
Right.
So as long just stick to your guns, and I think we'll be okay. I have faith in them. They haven't really steered me wrong in their games. So.
In your view, but you don't understand how bad the ending was.
It's true.
You just don't get it.
It is lost on me. And then they teased like, I didn't see this at the EA press conference, but it was during EA or E3.
Right.
They teased a little bit of like the Star Wars Battlefront game.
Oh, yeah.
Mentioning like it's going to be Rebellion era, I guess.
I heard a lot of people geeking out about that one.
And then they showed, it was like kind of the same thing that they did with both Mirror's Edge 2 and, well, I don't think it's called Mirror's Edge 2, but the next Mirror's Edge game.
Right.
And the Mass Effect and those. It was like they showed sort of like concept stuff.
Uh-huh.
Like, okay, here's, it's a speeder bikes flying around, but like, here's some concept art kind of thing. And like, the stuff they showed looks really awesome. So I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to see these on the current gen, this new systems.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't anything solid. Like, here's the game coming next year. It was
it's a bit like flipping through the art book that usually comes after a game before you have a chance to play around with it.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Like I said, the rest of the EA, most of it was sports stuff, which, I mean, if you're into sports, they're new. I think it's like the Ignite engine or whatever. It's like looks pretty.
Right.
So
it's a step forward in sports gaming.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, a leap forward.
A leap forward, leaps and bounds.
Boldly gone where no one has gone before. Forward.
And then the crew at Ubisoft, they showed off more of that. That looked like that could be. I still don't know exactly like what you do in that game besides the driving, but it looks pretty cool. The concept of it.
The earliest thing that I saw, I think, explained it the best, and I don't know if it's changed since then, because it sounds like they've done some pretty major overhauls since then also, is that it sounds like it's sort of a GTA style multiplayer, you colluding to do like get the same task done,
Mm-hmm.
except that it's more car bound than
Yeah.
like third person run around type of thing.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. And then
Yeah.
its big thing too is like you going from one end of the United States to the other, like it's, traversing the United States.
Yeah, it's supposed to have a fairly well fleshed out US of A on there.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if there ends up being a throwdown between that and Forza Horizon 2. Like, which one better replicates the United States?
Yeah.
Which one more faithfully, or which one more in spirit replicates?
Yeah. And then the Valiant Hearts, the second game, and the UbiArt engine that Child of Light used looked cool.
Yeah,
that looked neat. So and I believe that's actually coming this year. But yeah, it was. I mean, overall, like, just there's definitely some cool stuff coming. I mean, it's hard to say like if every single thing is gonna pan out. I mean, who knows what stuff's gonna get canceled, what stuff's gonna change. That always happens in E3. And then
you can look back to E3s ago, and you'll still not see currently the stuff that you hoped for from back then.
Stuff's always changing, and and then there's still I mean, I know they do little things here and there at Comic-Con, but there's also Gamescom in Germany, I believe. That's like slowly becoming actually even bigger than E3, so there'll be some announcements and stuff there, I'm sure.
Yeah, it sounds like that's the developer's favorite in a weird sort of way, which I would have never guessed. But I guess there are a lot of big game development companies in Germany right now.
Yeah, and it's like the one, it's actually open to the public, so the public can go to, and so
let's get our tickets.
That would be awesome. But,
we just have to learn to speak German.
Maybe not even that. I mean, I'm sure around that time there's going to be plenty of English.
I'm sticking with my guns in this one. We have to learn German first.
Well, maybe we'll get some discount on beer that way. But
okay,
that's the other part that would be awesome too. Like,
they have beer there, don't they? Okay,
from what I hear,
I might be into that.
But yeah, I think overall, like, definitely some cool announcements from E3, and there's some cool games coming out this year that I'm definitely excited for. I think October is going to be jam-packed with.
So what is the
games.
rundown of October games at this point?
Oh, man. Trying to remember. I think Evolve. I think Alien Isolation. I think Dragon Age Inquisition. I think Far Cry is in November. I think Call of Duty's in November. Oh, Sunset Overdrive's in October.
Oof.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Jeez.
Yeah, I'm going to be getting the Sunset Overdrive and Alien Isolation.
Yeah. But yeah, I know there's more games, but yeah, it's a big one. It's like because I think September, I think, is Destiny. Something else. Diablo 3 is in August, so that'll be cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then November, it's obviously Call of Duty, so they're like staying away from that date from November. I think it's like Call of Duty and Far Cry 4, I believe, are coming out that month.
Oh, okay.
Maybe they'll push some other games in there because, it's like, man, October. Like, I think the first week of October that I think Dragon Age Inquisition, I think there's like 4 big games I think come out. I think it's like Dragon Age, the Lord of the Rings game, Shadow of Mordor, which I'm hearing like extremely awesome things about, especially like this Nemesis system.
I actually forgot about that one.
And then like I think Alien Isolation. There's like like 4 like big games dropping.
Yeah,
like,
I'm surprised Alien Isolation didn't get more of a presence at E3. That would have been definitely something that I would have concentrated on. But
I know they had had it there
Uh-huh.
at booths and stuff, but and then I think you could even play it on the Oculus Rift.
oh,
They had
okay.
some people doing that there, from what I hear, people getting
That would
scared.
be a pretty good way of getting scared, I'd think.
Yeah, but yeah, it's. I mean, this is. I'm actually glad that like Batman got pushed to next year, and a couple other games got pushed to next year. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, there's plenty of games that my wallet is going to be happy that I'm not having to get. Like,
Yeah. I know it's been there's still a bunch of games that I haven't been able to give their due for just because everything released kind of
yeah.
faster than I expected.
Oh, I forgot to mention that I don't think this was supposed to come out this week. I think it was supposed to come out next week, but apparently Outlast is now on Xbox One. Like it dropped this week. I think like the release date I think is for next week, but apparently it's on the downloads to buy it now. So
and actually that's another bit of not necessarily E3 news, but video game news in general is that PlayStation finally released the pre-downloading of games.
Yeah.
So
and I know that's something that
Xbox wants to do also
at some point. So since they're making these like once a month updates, like a permanent thing,
right?
I'm sure that'll come as one of the bigger ones. Like I know next
especially
month,
since updates are a little bit more seamless on the one than they used to be with 360.
Yeah,
derailing your entire life.
Yeah. I like this cool like thing now. Like, yeah, we're gonna do this once a month.
Yeah,
new feature like that. That's cool. You can now do. They have like a feedback site where you can go if you have an idea, like send it to them, and you get people to vote on it, or you like it's and it'll actually go. Yeah, like I listened to Major Nelson's podcast,
right.
and one of the guys on there's like, yeah, it's like. It's actually, depending upon what the idea is, like it's actually going to the teams. It's not going to the wastebasket. Like people,
That's
you
cool.
know. So if you have an idea for Smart Glass, put it in there. If you have an idea for the party system, it's going to go, and then the team will look at it and be like, okay, we like this. We can implement this, or we can't really do this now. Let's put it aside. Let's focus on this. But like I know for July, in that update, the big one is like being able to snap achievements.
Oh, okay.
And then you can rank, like you can prioritize like which achievements within that game like you're trying to shoot for, and then you can actually like select if you need like help getting that achievement. You can select it, and then it'll open up Internet Explorer.
Oh, okay.
And then it'll like have a search of like related to that achievement.
Right.
So. If you're not big on achievements, it's probably not like a huge thing, but that's cool because there was people sort of complaining about like when an achievement pops up now, I have to like, if I want to look at it, I back out of the game to go into an app. Now
that's
I can
definitely been one of the big frustrating things to me. There's a few things like that seems like they should have been snap things, but
yeah,
I think it's nice that they're fixing that one.
I think we're gonna slowly start to see more and more stuff like
I'm
Snap.
sure it all will
Yeah.
eventually, but they have to prioritize now that they got derailed and had to completely reorganize what they need to do for the last year.
Yeah. But yeah, it seems like they're right on track, and I mean, it seems like both, or I suppose I should include the Wii U as well. They're getting some cool stuff that Nintendo people like in this too.
But who cares?
Just as like, it seems like everybody's getting some cool things, so it's not just all on one particular thing. It's that's what I liked.
It's nice to see Wii U hitting a little bit more of its stride. So that's cool.
Yeah, we'll see.
It was getting to the point where I felt bad picking on it. It was,
So
it's like kicking a puppy.
Yeah, you don't.
It's just so cute.
Yeah, you don't want to kick a puppy.
No, it feels wrong.
So yeah, I think
every time I do it.
Man, that's what we're going to end the show on, huh?
No, I don't kick puppies, I swear. I just joke about it, which is probably equally as bad.
Yeah, not as good either. But yeah, let us know. Excuse me. Let us know what you thought about E3, what stuff you're excited about. Hit us up on Twitter, Robots Attack Me. Tweet us on Facebook. Just search, on Facebook, Robots Attack Show. And yeah, just leave a comment. Let us know. You can even email us. Just go to it's robotsattackshow@gmail.com. Just go to our website, robotsattack.me. Check out previous shows. Go to iTunes. You can download previous shows on there too. Maybe rate us, review us, so it kind of pops up a little bit. And if you're one of our new likes or new listener or something like that, thanks for tuning in, and thanks for liking. We appreciate it. We're trying to build the show more and more, and yeah, just let us know what you're excited for, and if you have any sort of topic ideas, or just what do you think about sort of the role of women in games or that sort of thing. I mean, it's a big topic. We'd love to hear what you think about it as well. And yeah, I think that'll do it for this kind of slightly extended show. We had a little extra time that we've gone over, and we were right. It was going to take the entire show talking about
I was pretty
at
sure.
E3. Yeah. So next week we should be back to sort of regularly scheduled.
We'll
program.
start out with news.
Yeah, we'll
not start out, but we'll have news.
We'll have news, and as far as I know, Caleb should be back, and we'll keep you posted on summertime, since the station's since it's summer and the building, the hours change and whatnot. Thought that was happening this week, but I think it's next week. So yeah, thanks for tuning in, and have a great weekend. And also, I did want to throw out too, it's super easy to stream games now on your new system or PC or that sort of thing, type of thing. If you, I think it would be kind of fun to get the three of us together to stream a thing for any fans or something that want to watch. If that sounds cool, shoot us a message on any of those things. If it's something
we
you'd
can
like
easily
to see.
do ghosts right now. That's probably the easiest.
Yeah, or just whatever. If it sounds like something that you'd be interested in checking out, even down the line. I mean, it's there's going to be a bunch of games coming out this year. It should be fun to play all together and stream.
Eventually, we guarantee we'll do Division Twitch footage.
Yeah.
That's a promise.
Yeah. Yeah, I even streamed Zoo Tycoon one time. I had 16 people
saw that.
watching for a little while. I was like, wow, this is cool. I was not expecting that.
Right.
So yeah, all right, that's going to do it. I am Joe. Well, that's Jason.
Yes.
You've been listening to Robots Attack here on KSU Santa Clara 103.3 FM, the underground sound. We're going to turn it over to Robo DJ. And we are out of here. Take it easy, everyone. Be good to each other. And it's party on, Wayne.
And be good to your puppies and your robots.
Yes, and your cats too.
The cats will force you, but...
that's true. Because that's what cats do. But all right, we're out of here.
Raccoon, Verada, Nikto.